Hello, everybody. I'm Jennifer Grossman. I'm CEO of the Atlas Society. Welcome to the 8th edition of Ask the Atlas Society. It's a series that we've been doing where we talk with different students and student groups and people that just have questions for the Atlas Society. I'm so honored today to have with me Paulo Gontijo, who's the executive director of Livres, which is out of Rio de Janeiro, although he's in the countryside now. Welcome, Paulo.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for inviting me over. It's a pleasure to have this conversation with you and record. As you can see, I'm inside a shop, friend's shop in the countryside. So maybe people are gonna pop by over here, but that's not gonna be in our way. It's just a pleasure to be here and be able to have this chat with you.
Well, great. I'm so excited. I'm very partial to Brazil, and I'm also very inspired by a lot of the progress and the traction that groups like yours have gotten inside the country. So people watching, at least from the Atlas Society side, know who I am. Would love to learn a little bit about you and about your history with the organization you lead.
That's great. Okay, I am Brazilian, as you know. I've been around the pro-liberty movement ever since 2005, maybe. First at Instituto Millennium, then I have worked a lot trying to build more sort of entrepreneurial mindset in the Brazilian society. I have hosted a radio show on that for quite some years. And for the last 2 years, I have dedicated myself to run Livres. We began as a sort of a startup political group inside a party. We left that and we became sort of part of the civil society as an association of free people. And we are dedicated to advancing freedom and pro-liberty ideas in Brazil. We have over 3,000 people who are associated to Livres now. We do a lot of content, we do a lot of leadership training, and we do a lot of advocacy on public policy issues around the country. Ever since especially now in this sort of chaos we have been living for the last few months, our main goal has been to block bad, poorly elaborated laws. So there are quite some laws now that want to tax more corporations and tax more companies, and then to freeze prices and things like that. And this has been one of our main goals, just to block bad legislation.
Right, I get it. So you're right now doing defense.
Exactly. Let's say we have to be like the big tough linebacker right now because bad legislation should not pass.
Okay. Well, I got it. That's really great. And I look forward to learning more about the organization and finding other ways to partner. But let's start out today. I understand you have a few questions.
Okay, I'll start the questions on my take now. So the first thing is we have a big history of collectivistic ideas in Brazil, and some people are still sort of in the way. And why should people choose individualism over collectivism as sort of a mindset for the country?
That's a great question. So, we were talking about my travels to Brazil and my love of the culture. And one of the things that I love about the Brazilian people and the culture is there's this almost kind of innocence, this sort of like not childish, but more like childlike wonder and childlike orientation towards life, which is very charming. But of course, if you don't want to be treated like a child, you need to not act like a child, right? So if you are thinking, I want mama and papa in the government to take care of me, and give me things like as if I was an infant, then they're also going to be the ones meting out the punishment. And hopefully, at least when you are in a situation, in a familial situation, there are some bonds, that are natural bonds that people want to take care of their children. They want to take care of their parents. But when you're in government, it's totally irrational, okay, and fantasy thinking to be thinking, oh, this strong man or this, socialist dictator, whatever, is going to take care of you. People in Brazil know. And there's also, in addition to that beautiful wonder, that I talked about, there's a lot of skepticism. There's a lot of mistrust, there's a lot of fear. And I think that to an extent, you can channel that to be healthy in terms of being a little bit skeptical about people that are coming in and offering to do all of these things for you. You should ask what's in it for them and what's their benefit, and not to just necessarily assume that somehow people, once they're in the government, are different, creatures than the people that we see, in our everyday lives. We want people to be benevolent, but I think it's just a disconnect when you're saying, all right, well, hey, listen, I'm taking precautions about my house. I'm taking precautions about my family. I'm putting some, bars on the door, and I'm, protecting my family. But then you just let the government totally in, to your life, and you give all of the decisions over to them. You just need to think about being an individual means also doing what's best for you, doing what's best for your family. And it also requires, unlike being a child or an animal, that you use your mind, right? Because these are things that are not just completely handed to you from the sky. There are things that you have to create. And so in order to do that, you need to be able to use your own independent thinking.
Now, one of the questions that we pose ourselves a lot here is, and especially because of the history and political history of our countries, can we separate pro-liberty ideas? I mean, can you won't be a pro-liberty person if you only advocate for free markets, but not a free political societies? Or are these liberties interdependent? What's your view on that?
You can't compartmentalize liberty, okay? It's like, you can't separate freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom from assembly, from the freedom to trade, the freedom to operate your business, the freedom to do what you need to do and want to do with the smallest unit of production. In socialism, they would say, well, that's just, government means of production. Well, the basic unit, the basic means of production is the individual and what's inside your head. So, to give an example, well, you're saying, oh, well, we want to have these other freedoms because they're nice freedoms, but we're going to socialize medicine, and we're going to the government is going to come in and is going to redistribute and be in charge of paying for healthcare. And in the United States, we had the experience that, well, you put that into the government sphere, and you made originally sort of an argument that this is going to be because of economic issue. But then what you soon saw was that once you gave that authority over to the government, there were other people that were saying, well, all right, maybe I'm going to get some benefits, but now the government is in charge of subsidizing the things that the government finds politically acceptable. And that, Catholics were having questions about, well, I don't want my tax dollars to subsidize, abortion, or what have you. And so that's where something which you'd think of as like a religious issue then becomes intermingled with economic freedom, because the government is taking on a larger sphere of control.
That's a great answer. One of the Ayn Rand is not as known in Brazil as it is in the US, of course. But you know quite well about Brazilian reality. So which novel would you indicate that would sort of touch Brazilians' hearts? I mean, in our sort of office at Livres, we try to promote freedom 24/7 in Brazil. And one of the things we try to do is use not only rational means, not only numbers and charts and graphs, but rather to touch people in a deeper level. So, which of Ayn Rand's book would you recommend to a Brazilian who's starting to study her?
That's a great question. I would recommend, and that's what the Atlas Society is all about. And that's in a large part what Ayn Rand was about. That she created these narratives and this fiction and this art, which also had messages in it about the nature of reality, about the nature of man, about the nature of society, about the nature of art. So though I would also kind of be realistic about the fact that people maybe are not, having the same reading habits as they used to. So I would say maybe a good place to start would be with Anthem, the graphic novel, and that's something if we, would be happy to provide copies to your organization in Brazil. However, they're in English because it's science fiction, it's dystopian, it shows what happens on a fundamental level when language is controlled, when culture is controlled, and when envy, and brotherhood and all of these things are put on a higher level than the individual, what are the consequences? And I think it's really well suited for a young audience because it's a graphic novel, it's a comic book, and people like that. It's also in a video format. But I would also say, and I've listened to it and read it in Portuguese as well, a long time ago, A Revolta de Atlas. And it's Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged in Portuguese. That's her masterpiece. So, to the extent that people do our readers, I would just kind of go for broke and do the whole thing.
That's a great point. And by the way, Atlas Shrugged first was translated in Brazil as Quem é John Galt, just as it's written. And then the second version was A Revolta de Atlas. But the first print was back in the 80s, I think. Actually, one of the best translators in Brazil did it. It's quite well translated.
Beautiful.
Now, yeah. One of the most important aspects, I think, of the sort of pro-liberty movement in the world is outreach and connection and exchange of ideas. And the thing I've heard that you guys are trying to act a little bit more on Latin America and reach to different audiences. What are you guys planning? How can we help in your sort of new endeavors? So what's the Atlas Society vision for Latin America in the short or middle term?
Yeah, so it's evolving. We're definitely open to ideas and to partnerships. We just kind of accidentally went down that path because we translated one of our videos. My name is Chip Wilson. Chip Wilson is the founder of Lululemon, and he was the honoree at our gala last year. And we thought, well, let's just translate it into Spanish, get a Spanish voiceover for it. And we just threw it out there, and it just, with no targeting, not for people that like Ayn Rand or people that like yoga or people that like anything. We just published it in Latin America where we could. And the views took off faster, and we got more engagement, very positive engagement than we did with the English version. And so that kind of got me started down a path of thinking, well, maybe we could translate more of our content into Spanish. And so we're working with a group in Argentina now to translate 5 of our other Draw My Life videos. My name is Envy, my name is Greed, my name is Victimhood, my name is Ayn Rand, my name is Gratitude, my name is Socialism, into Spanish. We'd love to translate them into Portuguese. And so, you know, if there's a partner there, that would be that would be great. And then also we have started to translate some of our most popular content, our memes, into Spanish. And so what we have to offer, you know, in addition to a highly engaged, the most engaged liberty space in the United States, in terms of our engagement on Facebook, we have great content. So and a lot of it is universal. A lot of it does have to do with the United States, but there is also a lot of content there, you know, animated videos, graphic novels, that and memes, social media memes, that I think would be accessible. And you know, you talked about kind of being a niche, and that's sort of our niche. You know, we as Adam Smith talked about, you know, the wealth of nations. It was about having a division of labor, you know, so we're a tiny team, you know, we're just like 7 people. You've got most of the team on this call. And so, so we're not able to do everything, and we're thrilled to partner with other groups that are doing things that, you know, are beyond our purview, and focus on doing what we do best, you know, which is coming up with creative content, finding ways that connect not just with the mind, but with, you know, with the heart and the spirit of young people today. So all of that can be followed on Facebook, and you know, we're evolving. We would be interested or open down the road to having a separate channel, or but for right now, you know, kind of it's good to know what one can do at one time. Right now, we're translating some of our content into Spanish, and I'd just be over the moon to translate some of it into Portuguese as well.
Oh, that's great. Boss is one part of our work is focused on content. Definitely we can partner up in there. And now coming, I mean, towards the end of our chat, I was told that you not only are a sort of long time traveler to Brazil and back, but you also know very specifically a very typical Brazilian song. And I would ask you to perform it to our audience. I'd love to see you sing it in Portuguese, of course.
Okay, I'm going to do it, and I want to also let people know why I'm doing it. It's
Please.
yeah. So when I first started studying Portuguese, like 20 years ago, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, I found music, you know, was a way that I could connect with it. So if I could just memorize songs, and then I could understand what the songs meant, then I was able to better understand, because that's kind of how I connect. And this song to me just has such a beautiful spirit. And I think one of the things that's really important now is to find ways to take care of our spirit, you know, because this is kind of a long haul, and this is a very difficult, very challenging situation. And being depressed and being, you know, angry and being panicked is not going to help you. Like I always say, every bad situation can be made worse. So find ways to get your orientation emotionally, so that you can do things that are going to make your situation better. And also, just personally, I have a penchant for doing things that, you know, put me at the risk of making a fool of myself. And I think that is very important. It's a wonderful ability to have, and I think it's very aligned with objectivist values of not just being like burdened by what other people think. Oh, people don't like it. People think it's silly. Okay, whatever. I don't care. So and having that mindset is providing one with the intellectual and spiritual space one needs to take risks and be willing to fail, and you know, just that's the way you can be creative. People always say, well, why are you creative? And it's actually connected to something which sounds like a pretty nerdy philosophy. So without further ado, I'm only going to do a little bit of it because I do love, I do want to partner with Brazil, and I don't want to completely turn the Brazilian off by butchering this song. So I'm going to start. You're going to recognize it. Moro num país tropical, abençoado por Deus e bonita por natureza. Que beleza em fevereiro. Tem carnaval. Eu tenho um fusca, um violão. Soy flamengo, tenho um negócio chamado Teresa. Okay, that's it.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Jorge Benjor, that's wonderful.
Oh,
He
I love
actually
that
lives in
song.
the U.S. now, if you don't know.
Really?
Yeah, in Celebration, Florida, most of the time. Um,
Okay, I'm going to research that, and I'm having a standing invitation to any other Brazilian student groups that want a little laugh and a little bit of levity and want the opportunity to see me do something really stupid. I will sing another song, or I'll sing the rest of that song if I get invited back.
That's great, Jennifer. Thank you so much for the info, the open-hearted conversation, and especially thank you for the Brazilian song. I must say your Portuguese pronunciation is way better than I expected. I mean, very, very good. You should not be at all worried about what other people are gonna say because I mean, you nailed it. Thank you so
Don't
much.
worry, I'm not. But thank you. All right. Bye. Be safe.
Bye.
Lovely meeting you.